Hi everyone, and welcome to this 15 to 20 minute Hitwise webinar where we share with you the top 5 questions that you should be asking when choosing a consumer insights or an audience insight solution. My name is Louise Stewart and I'll be your host for today's webinar. I'm joined by Mark Fauntleroy, who's Director of Global Product Management for Hitwise. And the purpose of today's webinar is to highlight which questions are the best ones to ask when choosing a data provider for your business. Finding the right provider is a lot easier when you know what questions to ask. So before I hand over to Mark, I just want to let you know that throughout the webinar, you'll be muted. However, we do invite you to ask questions. Please feel free to type your questions in the question box in the webinar panel, which is on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will address these questions at the end of the webinar. We don't want to miss any important questions that you have, so please don't be shy. So I'm now going to hand over to Mark to get this webinar started.
Thanks, Louise. Yeah, choosing an audience insight solution is kind of difficult. And there are a few common challenges that we found in recent surveys of marketers about data analytics. And those results show that nearly 2/3 of those marketers struggle to access or integrate the data that they need, and that nearly 90% of them still have difficulty creating a single customer view. And marketers these days need to assess all of the capabilities that a provider might have and be able to compare those capabilities to other solutions being offered. And so that really means that marketers need to be savvy. They must kind of assess the options based on what information that they truly need. And they need to ask the right questions. And that's what we're here to talk about today.
Okay, Mark, so the first question, do they provide a broad perspective on your competitors?
Right, thanks, Louise. So this message really is kind of important. The message here really is that it is important, to work on reaching your brand's own metrics and goals. But a winning strategy includes careful monitoring of the competition and adjusting your performance, accordingly. And I think the picture here says it all. I mean, you've got a racer here that's kind of celebrating before, the end of the race, and she's being beat. So, it really is about monitoring, your competition here. And so, the obvious things to mention in that are that there are solutions, that the solution that you're considering should provide you with the ability to kind of compare your performance to others in your specific sector, or the performance within a certain portfolio of select competitors. And that capability should include, a wide array of key performance indicators. Those indicators could be things like, traffic metrics like the number of visits, the visit share, the visits by device type, etc. You should be looking for solutions that can, provide you insight on search traffic and not just the number of clicks or, paid versus organic search and those kinds of common metrics, but the specific terms or keywords that are driving traffic to your site versus your competitor sites. The solution that you're looking at should also focus on audiences. And there you should be able to look at the number of unique users as well as the reach within target consumer segments. Reach is important to put that kind of absolute number within context to understand, really what your opportunity is. Engagement metrics are important. Things like page views and time spent and how engaged the audience is with your site or your competitor's site. Don't forget activity streams, so understanding the sources of traffic and the destinations of traffic for you and your competitors. That's important to kind of understanding where your opportunities are to kind of steal traffic away from competitors and conquest traffic. And of course, the ability to see a share metric across all of these dimensions. Being able to put it, again, into perspective within, your industry or your competitive set is super important. But more than the basic KPIs, a good solution provider will also enable you to understand your shared audience risk. And so understanding with whom you share audience and the percentage of your audience that you do share with a competitor can be helpful to begin to address loyalty risks. But more than that, it can also help you qualify partnership opportunities or even assess the importance of a third-party website in aiding conversions for your products. And then speaking of conversions, a well-equipped Solution provider should also be able to provide you with visibility into activity on your competitors' product pages and points of customer conversion. So, these may be customized features that may not be available in a standard offering, but they are important nonetheless. And so this type of depth to be able to get into, very specific product pages and very specific conversion points within your competitor sites enables you to follow what customers are seeking, to monitor your competitors' product strategies, or even helps you determine gaps in your product lineup. So these are important things to look for when you're considering the competitive scope of what a solution provider can actually offer.
Thanks, Mark. So question number 2 that you should be focusing on: are you getting enough insights on your mobile visitors?
Yeah, thanks, Louise. This is kind of a no-brainer these days, and if we're not, if you're not all thinking about it, then something's wrong. So, a strategy designed around one method of engagement honestly is a flawed strategy. Mobile is important, obviously, and your provider should be offering insights on how you and your competitors compare on different devices. And so, what that means is that a key question to ask here is, will I be able to differentiate audiences or behavior by device? Being able to broadly benchmark your performance against the competition is important, but being able to determine if your competitor's mobile strategy is outperforming yours, for instance, is really the key here. So, our advice is to look for a provider whose panel offers the right composition of desktop observation and mobile observation. This kind of, methodology, will ensure that you can get robust and reliable estimates of mobile behavior versus desktop behavior when it comes to, the measurement of audiences. And their reporting should allow you to analyze that behavior, of audiences on mobile devices separately from desktop, or to analyze them in a combined fashion. So this type of a kind of a dimensional capability will allow you to isolate your analysis and determine, how you're doing on each device and whether there are risks to address with each device strategy. And so you see here an example of a report that gives you basic benchmarking metrics and engagement metrics, and the ability to kind of flip between desktop and mobile, or to consider them both in your, in your analysis. And your provider should also be able to offer an understanding of how consumers are engaging across channels. So alongside reporting about your audience's online behavior, you should have access in the solution to usage data from the entire mobile app ecosystem for both your apps as well as your competitors' apps. So, there may be some insight that you have on engagement with your own apps already, but having that in a competitive benchmarking tool is important. It's important for understanding how influential your app is within a category, or maybe how sticky that is, how sticky your app is versus your competitors' apps with particular audiences. And so the promise of these kinds of mobile insights from any solid solution provider, any solid consumer insight solution provider, should also extend to knowing the audiences who use those specific apps. Giving you an accurate view of how your app is impacting consumer engagement with a target audience that actually matters to you. And so we'll get into audiences, and I think in a future question.
Okay, question number 3. Does your provider offer actual web behavior combined with consumer profiles?
Yeah, thanks. So while benchmarking yourself against the competition, which is kind of what we went through with benchmarking metrics and mobile metrics, is super important, it's also important to understand who those audiences are, and to be able to segment audiences for targeting and to profile them for better engagement. I mean, after all, your target customers are defined by more than how they engage with your brand or your website. Their demographics, their family makeup, how their lives are evolving, all those aspects are important to effective engagement with your customers. So some of the important things to consider in choosing an insight solution provider is that, that provider's ability to provide you with access to like the elemental building blocks needed to segment the audiences that you want to target. And so what we're talking about here is, the univariate measurements across multiple dimensions. In many cases, getting a predefined audience is just too broad, because there are elements of that audience that just won't resonate with your strategy. So what you need is the ability to segment audiences and to define discrete segments of consumers by different unique traits that they have or behaviors that they might exhibit. So the advice that we have here is to look for a solution provider that integrates both observed online behavior with rich consumer survey or study insights. They should be able to provide you with the ability to kind of combine those different types of measurements to create the audience that you need, or to create custom groups or competitive sets or custom sets of behaviors that will define a target audience. This capability should also allow you to kind of group those univariate measurements together in a logical fashion to define the very specific group that you're looking to identify. So the example on the screen kind of, is an example here where the marketer has used search terms combined with different consumer characteristics about demographics or attitudes or opinions and those sorts of things, and has grouped those together, and then further combined that with website visitation behavior, and that together, all three of those elements combined with with the logical expressions allows them to define the running shoe shopper audience that they're after. And so those are the kinds of capabilities that you need to look for in a solution provider, the one that can provide you that the very elemental building blocks of the capability to define the audience that you're after. And then with that, it's important that you're able to or rather that you're not limited in your ability to use that uniquely defined audience. So it's important to understand whether or not the solution enables you to kind of use that audience across all different types of insight reporting. You should be able to monitor that target audience segment's online behavior to understand how they engage with your brand. You should be able to monitor how that audience engages with other brands online, or your industry as a whole, and that will help you kind of learn what they're looking for online, and learn about how to capture their attention when it comes to online advertising. You should also be able to, though, build a very deep and rich profile of who those audiences are. This will help you learn more about who they are and how their lifestyle or life stage could affect their decisions, what activities they're into, where and how they shop, maybe what their typical spending habits might be, their attitudes toward different products or offers or advertising. And all of these types of insights are the keys to more effective engagement and better performance within your target customer segment. These are the things that really make an audience come alive and really drive your ability to actually speak their language, and really kind of engage with an audience.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, question number 4. Can you use CRM data to define actionable segments?
Yeah, so this is maybe one of the more important ones in this, in this webinar. Many of you have already made substantial investments in capturing information about your own customers, whether that's through things like loyalty or club programs or advertising responses, registration efforts, or even like maybe pixel and cookie tracking online. And maybe what you're doing is you're making business decisions based on the segments of customers that you've determined through the analysis of this type of data. But there's far more that you could know and learn about these customers. And so, being able to integrate those segments of customers into the insight solution is super, super important. So what you want to do is you want to probe your solution provider, and talk to them about their ability to integrate your known customer data, whether it's files of contact information, whether you're using established audiences on exchanges as the basis for your customer strategy, or whether you have IDs, or you want to track IDs of people that are maybe visiting sections of your site or even sections of your competitor's site. Excuse me, your provider should be able to ingest that data and match those IDs to the sample being used in their basic syndicated insight solution. And you should be able to see and use your own customer definitions within the solution. And that gives you the ability to expand the knowledge of these segments beyond what you've already known, beyond what you've already captured, and are driving your business by today. You would have the ability to combine that known data with all the other rich information that the solution provider is offering. So getting your segments built into the solution enables you to kind of have an even deeper understanding of who those customers are with that richer set of profile attributes. It should also enable you to see a greater scope of their online behavior, including all other sites that they visit, whether in your competitive set or not, and every product or term that they search for online. So this type of greater insight not only allows you to better engage with them through refined messaging and offer strategies, but it provides you with the insight needed to know where and how to advertise to them online. So, where is this particular segment? Where are my best customers coming from before they, visit my site? Or are they going to my competitor's site? Or if they're visiting my competitor's site, from where did they come? Where can I intercept them? Where can I have that sort of shared traffic or shared audience rather? Where can I intercept that shared audience to kind of, mitigate the risk of losing that audience? So a really good solution provider will even go the extra mile, and they'll have the ability to extend this, these integrated segments and the knowledge, about them to find more like audiences to target and to build those target audiences for deployment in your online campaigns. And so that's something also to look for as well.
Okay, the last question to round out the top 5. Will you get real-time insights to react to fast-moving trends?
Yeah, thanks, Louise. Got stuck on mute there for a second. So this is really one final important focus that you should have in identifying, a good solution provider here, and that's really on the timeliness of data and the depth that you can actually get out of your provider's data within those frequent updates. So because all the information that we just covered is super important, it's really the ability, though, to quickly read shifts in those insights that we just talked about, and to tactically maneuver that allows you to keep up with even, to keep up with the competitors, or even, overtake the competition. What you should be doing is you should be challenging your data provider on the temporal kind of frequency of their reporting. Can you get daily or even hourly data? And if so, for what metrics can you get that? For some campaigns, of course, it's important to understand how traffic, for a key audience segment is moving throughout the campaign. And that can help you determine, your ability to react quickly enough to stem a problem, let's say, or, it can drive your ability to take even greater advantage of an opportunity. So, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to understand, can you get visitation and user metrics by day or by hour? Will you be able to look at engagement measures in these short kind of time intervals, the kind of page views and time spent measurements at a very short interval? What about search by day or within the day? Having search within the day or even hour by hour can be a game changer in some strategies. So, within that ability to get the very frequent data, you need to know what depth, at what depth you can get these insights. So can you get intraday granularity on very, very specific activity? Being able to track, individual articles, let's say, or product pages that different audience segments are viewing throughout the day can be helpful to inform your content strategy or your editorial strategy if there are, media brands out there listening. These types of insights can also help you track your competitor's product or content performance. So this is how you can get, to determine if you need to change or add content in order to kind of steal customer attention away and ultimately conquest visitors to your competitor's site. So in the example here, we see top articles viewed within the day across a number of different media publications online. Being able to understand that the share of a particular audience's time or visits to those articles within each site is super important to understand, like how are these media properties attracting audience, and how are they engaging that audience across the day. And then with search, it's important to understand, having that understanding of what the target audience is searching for is one thing. But knowing when they search for that specific kind of product means that you can optimize your promotions and offers to take advantage of that behavior. So at the bottom of the screen here, we're showing an example of internal search, a search within a particular website for very specific products. And you're able to see, on an hour-by-hour basis across multiple days, what people are searching for. And so there are certain times of day where the marketer may be able to kind of use this type of data to optimize their offer campaigns and offer incentives for purchasing during those kind of peak times. So these are also important things to kind of dig into with a solution provider. Not only the frequency of the data, but the depth within that frequency is super important. So I think we kind of quickly went through those 5 key questions that we had identified. I'd like to turn it over now back over to Louise to see if there are any questions in the audience.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We've got a couple of questions that have come through already. I'm going to read just one out because we are running a bit quick on time. So the question to you, Mark, is, do you think audience segmentation is more important than benchmarking?
Wow. Well, I guess what I would say is that simple benchmarking metrics alone are really only part of the story. By driving strategy around a focus of simply getting more visits or more visitors really means that there's waste in your strategy. And adding audience segmentation to your solution should enable you to enable you to kind of build a strategy that differentiates engagement by customer type, or build a strategy that sort of focuses on the most valuable customers, or customers that might fit the evolution of your brand, or customers that are competitive customers that you want to conquest. So I think segmentation is just as important as benchmarking. Benchmarking alone really doesn't doesn't complete a full strategy. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, so that's all we've got time for in today's Hitwise webinar. We hope you found this informative and took some key pieces of advice away from you. We did have a couple of questions that did come through but that we didn't get to, but we will be replying to you directly via email to answer those questions. I also want to let you know that, don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the Amazon gift card winners that we did promise. I'll be contacting the first 10 people who did register and then attend this webinar directly to get their details. You'll be hearing from me shortly. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much for everyone for attending, and we hope you have a great day.